Hello! Today I'm covering the space funeral Iceberg, created by Void4 on icebergcharts.com. I have actually already made another space funeral Iceberg, but it sucks, so I'm covering this one. Alright, let's begin. Layer 1, RPG Maker Surface. Space funeral. Yep, this is indeed the game we're talking about. No idea why it's here, but cool, I guess. Philip and Leghorse. The two protagonists of the series. They appear in some form in almost every SF game. By the way, I'm calling it SF from now on, get it wrecked. I like to drink the blood and smoke the weed. In the first game, if you enter a mansion in the northern wastes, you can find Dracula. If you talk to him, you get to experience the greatest conversation in RPG history. This is one of his lines. The Catamites. The Catamites is the creator of the first SF game. He's also created such beautiful games as Goblet Grotto and Murder Dog 4 Trial of the Murder Dog. I'll link his personal website, Harmony Zone, in the description. Fan games. The original SF game, despite being incredibly obscure, has somehow spawned 24 fan games, a lot of which we'll cover later. Rubles. Rubles are the main currency of the land of Space Funeral. And of Russia, apparently. Moon. Moon is the main antagonist of the first game, makes multiple appearances in other games in the series. She is an artist who has visited the City of Forms to seek inspiration, but the perfection of the city corrupted her, causing her to enact the Great Change, which caused all the weird crap in the game. She acts as the final boss of the first game. She is the protagonist of the fifth game as well. Capitalization. Most games in the series tend to use an excruciating amount of capitalization, to parody the abundance of it in old RPGs. In those games, capitalization signified important things in text, but in SF it just sorta exists. Made with RPG Maker 2003. This is true, most games in the series are made with RPG Maker 2003. Mystery. In most games, the main character has a mystery skill, which, when used, causes some random effect that's always very funny. Layer 2, Scum Village. Space Funeral 2. Space Funeral 2 is, shockingly, the second SF game. It was created by Dark Chibi Shadow and follows Philip and Leghorse as they explore Space Funeral again, now being corrupted by a different artist named with cancer. The game is incredibly short and easy, but pretty funny. It was made just to get an interview from the original creator, which ended up happening. I'll link it in the description. The game is dubbed canon by the Catamites. Space Funeral: The Legend of Earthbirth. This is the third game of the series, and follows Philip and Leghorse, and eventually Dracula, as they attempt to kill Sine to restore blind faith to the land of Earthbirth. This is probably my favorite game of the series, it's absolutely hilarious. Much like SF2, the game got an interview and was dubbed canon. I'll once again link that interview in the description. Obscurity. Space Funeral is an incredibly obscure indie game, even more so than stuff like Off. That's about it. Controversies. This entry is presumably referring to the controversy revolving around Space Funeral 4, as people really hated that game. And so does the creator, apparently. Much of the discourse around it has been lost, so basically all I know about it is that this controversy happened. Space Funeral Discord. There is indeed a Space Funeral Discord server, I'll link it in the description. Space Funeral Wiki. There is indeed a Space Funeral Wiki. I've contributed way too much to it, so now it basically covers the first 3 games. I'll link it. Our Space Funeral. There is indeed a Space Funeral subreddit. I'll, link it, I guess. Bubsy in original game. People seem to really hate the fact that Bubsy appeared in a few later fan games, but he actually technically appeared in the first game. You can find him in Lion Village as the Wise Lion Bubsy. I actually don't know if this is a reference to the games, considering Bubsy is a bobcat in his series, he's a lion in SF, but I don't know. Shape of Lion Village. According to Wise Lion Bubsy, Lion Village is shaped like a lion. I don't see it. This is probably a stretch, but it actually sort of looks like Bubsy the Bobcat's head. Huh. Enemy type weaknesses. Most enemies in most games have some sort of weakness to a specific item. For example, criminals are weak to Bibles, and libertarians are weak to calculators. The Pyramid. If you talk to a person named Hugh Leopard in Malice, you can go to a pyramid. The pyramid itself is a maze filled with useful items and mummies that teleport you outside of the pyramid. 2 Horaces. In the original game, there are actually 2 characters named Horace. A random man in Malice who tells you about mummies and the true name of a lake horse. Weird. City of Forms is the database of RPG Maker. I'm not completely sure, but I think this is a theory that since the City of Forms is filled with so many sprites and objects, it's possible it's meant to represent the database of RPG Maker, which contains all of the enemies, items, skills, etc. This is an interesting theory I've literally never heard of before. F-word, yeah, spacefuneral.tumblr.com. Sorry, I'm technically a minor and I would actually die if I said a swear word. Anyways, this is a blog on Tumblr that basically acts as a fan message board for SF fans to post fan art, discussions, and the like. I'll link it. Cancer. Cancer is the main antagonist of SF2. I already discussed him earlier. Science. Science is the main antagonist of Space Funeral: The Legend of Earthbirth. She is a large biomechanical snake who represents, well, science. She is encountered as the final boss of the game. Scum Village. Scum Village is Philip's hometown in the first area of Space Funeral. Not sure why this is here. Layer 3. Bone Swamp. Dracula's true powers. I'm honestly not sure what this entry is talking about. If someone knows, let me know. Artists are villains. In multiple SF games, the main antagonists are artists. That's pretty interesting. Space Funeral 4, The Parmingulator. This is a fan game made by Squirrely Jack. It's intended as a parody of SF games, and specifically their original game, Space Funeral 4. Yeah, they're the person who made that. It's sort of funny, but not that funny. It's just right. Space Funeral Corpse March. This is a Space Funeral game made by Half Alieno. It's pretty dang good, so check it out if you wish. Space Funeral Burning Zodiac. This is an SF game made by Oscodos that's quite good. That's about it. Space Funeral of Rubies and Gold. This is yet another SF game made by Half Alieno. It's good, play it. Space Funeral 9 Cardarnival. Oh my god, how many fan games are there? This is another SF game made by Hamfist. It's good. Blood Fortress. Blood Fortress is a prominent SF game creator. She's made such games as Calypso, Blood Inside Me, Alpha Funeral, and Nuclear Winter. They're all great, you should play them. I'll link her account below. Zorg Cannon. The Zorg Cannon is the most powerful weapon in the original Space Funeral. It can be accessed in various ways, and it makes the entire game's difficulty more of a joke than it already was. 20th Century Boy / Ripoff. The 20th Century Boy is the third boss of Space Funeral. He's revealed to be the brother of Leghorse. He's heavily inspired by Mark Bolan, a musician. Ripoff is a move he has that's a reference to a Mark Bolan song, T-Rex. Vinesauce Stream. Vinesauce is a Twitch streamer who sends streams for the first and third SF games. They're pretty entertaining, I'll link them in the description. Eat Your Greens. In Philip's house in the original, if you talk to who's presumably your mother, she simply says, "Eat your greens." That's some good advice right there. Stoic Rose 94. Stoic Rose 94 is a streamer and game developer who's made multiple SF fan games. Her streams are quite entertaining, I'll link her Twitch and YouTube below. Purple Drink in Fields. In the Scum Plains in the original, in a cave, you can interact with a wall a head is pointing towards. This grants you a purple drink. I had no idea this was here until I looked in the files. Big Doobie. I'm assuming this is either referring to Fat Doobies, healing items in SF3, or the Obese Doobie, a boss in SF3. The Obese Doobie is a large blunt that's been hunted to extinction every nanosecond of a timeline, so you must team up with Dracula to hunt it outside of time and space. The Fat Doobie is simply a healing item you can find in the cannabis fields. Layer 4. Blood Docs. Bible in the Crap Store. In the Crap Store in Malice, a Bible is the first item in the store. That's a sentiment I agree with. BBC Radiophonic Workshop. This is a band that produces banger music that you should listen to. They compose a lot of the music in Space Funeral and multiple other games in the series. Ruth White. Ruth White is a musician that produces surreal and disturbing, well, quote-unquote music. Once again, a lot of her music is in Space Funeral. Music causing copyright claim in YouTube playthroughs. This is something I'm very familiar with, as YouTube really hates SF playthroughs with how much copyrighted music is in the game. It's very unpleasant if you're trying to make money, but thankfully I'm not, so it doesn't really matter for me. Space Funeral 4. SF4 is the game made by Squirrely Jack that caused all the controversy I touched on earlier. It's still available in the Internet Archive, but I feel sort of bad playing it since the creator doesn't want anyone seeing it, so I haven't yet. But it is indeed still available if anyone wants to try it. Space Funeral 5, Journey of the Moon and Bubsy. This is a fan game made by Red McLeod, starring Moon as the main character. It's really short and the game crashes halfway through since files are missing, but from what I played, it's pretty good. Space Funeral 6, A Tale of Time. SF6 is yet another fan game by Harry White Productions that's quite good. I'm sorry, I don't have much to say about these fan game entries. Most of them are good, just play them. Granny Smith. Speaking of, Granny Smith is the land where all of SF6 takes place. It's similar to Space Funeral or Earthbirth, and SF and SF3 respectively. Time. Time is the main antagonist and final boss of SF6. He's the embodiment of the concept of time must be defeated to do something. I honestly don't remember, I haven't played it in a while. Original identity of Space Funeral NPCs. I genuinely don't know what this is talking about. If anyone understands, tell me. Layer 5, Malice. Secrets of Space Funeral. This, similar to F-Word, yeah, Space Funeral, is a fan blog for Space Funeral. But instead of being a conglomerate of fan art and discussions, it's meant to be a combo of that and a compendium of knowledge. Sadly, it's not very expansive and barely covers the first game. I'll link it. As I mentioned earlier, Goblet Grotto. As I mentioned earlier, Goblet Grotto is another game made by the Catamites. It's an open-world exploration RPG with tons of content that's all very strange. It's pretty good, I'd recommend it. Fanfiction.net stories. On both Archive of Our Own and Fanfiction.net, there's a small amount of SF fanfictions. They're all really weird, but they're pretty good. Easiness is unintentional. A few people have suggested that the Catamites intentionally made the original game easy to commentate on something. But according to him, he'd originally tried to make the game challenging, but he gave up and made it easy since it was, well, easier to program. Neat. Commentary on creativity. Space Funeral was presumably made to comment on how things that are crappy but still unique are more interesting than things that are perfect but generic. This is exemplified through the ending, where everyone becomes generic RPG Maker characters, which is really uninteresting compared to the rest of the game. Interviews. As I mentioned earlier, the Catamites has been interviewed by the creator of SF2. He also interviewed the creator of SF3. I'll link both in the description, they're interesting reads. Space Funeral 2 of Rubies and Gold 2, From Shadows We Rise, Aerosat Thanatos. God, that's a mouthful. This is the extremely confusing but very entertaining sequel to Of Rubies and Gold, created by Half Alieno. The plot is super hard to follow, but it's pretty fun nonetheless. Moon is the only enemy without a weakness. This is a true statement. At least in the original, every enemy is weak to something, but Moon isn't weak to anything. Space Funeral Detrimental Principles. This is a fan game by iDonoDev that follows Dilbert and Apicado as they attempt to do something I don't remember. Once again, it's pretty good. Play it if you wish. Layer 6, Ghost Forest. Frogs hold the purple drink. In the original, one of the mystery effects in the Snow Frog encounters leads Philip to gain a purple drink, which is an item. And it's also a drug. It's pretty cool. I guess this theory claims that the frogs had it before Philip took it. I don't know why they'd have it, but I guess it's possible. Balzac. Balzac is one of the two protagonists of SF Corpse March. He's according to the game's description, disgusting bathroomed roughhouser, which I guess is a pretty accurate description. Arm. Arm is the other protagonist of Corpse March. He's a squelchy, disembodied right arm who fills the same role as Leghorse, as he's a strange, snarky appendage being. Ghost of the Moon. The Ghost of the Moon is the main antagonist of SF of Rubies and Gold, and is, shockingly, the Ghost of Moon. She acts as the final boss of the game. Space Funeral Speedrun Discord server. This is similar to the main SF server, but it's just for speedrunners of the game. Once again, I'll link it. Space Funeral Calypso. This game is a remake of the original by Blood Forgers with improved graphics and an entirely new ending. It's pretty epic. Auto/Auton Identity, and Magi/Magic Slime Identity. I'm combining two entries in this Iceberg because I don't know what either of them mean. Auton and Magic Slime are characters in the Of Rubies and Gold duology, but I don't know who Auto and Magi are. I'm probably just forgetting something, but if anyone knows, tell me. Layer 6. Wastelands. Wait, I think it's Layer 7, never mind, God, just ignore me. Layer 7, Wastelands. Lion's Stock Market. A lion on the boat ride in the original mentions how lions have a special lion code, which they use to hunt prey and buy stocks. This implies the existence of a lion stock market, which deeply unnerves me. Lost fan games. Multiple fan games are completely lost. Most of them we at least know about, but it's possible there's some that are completely undiscovered, which is weird to think about. Luna. Luna is a supporting character in Space Funeral Corpse March and is Cancer and Moon's child. I really don't want to know how that happened. The Sickness. The Sickness is an SF fan game made by Blood Fortress that follows a vampire named Crescent. I haven't played much of it, but it seems good. Fan games don't fit with original style. Starting with SF3, you can notice the style of writing and specifically the humor becomes very different from the original. It's sort of hard to explain, but you can notice it if you play them in order. It doesn't bother me since SF3 is hilarious, but it's definitely interesting. Monster Party. Monster Party is an NES game that apparently inspired the aesthetic of Space Funeral, as there's copious amounts of blood and surreal monsters in both. Space Funeral fan game trailers. A couple of SF fan games have trailers available on YouTube. That's about it. I don't really know why this entry is so far down. Space Funeral and Vegetables Binding of Monitor Regangrene by Ibat Basuha. This is a YouTube video I'll link below featuring a bunch of characters from way too many pieces of media, including Vegetables from SF3. It's very confusing and I have no idea what's happening in it, but it's very entertaining. Vinton. The name sounds very familiar to me, but for the life of me I don't remember who Vinton is, and I can't find anything about them online. Let me know in the comments if you remember who they are. Sorry I keep telling you to comment, I just can't find anything about a lot of these. Layer 8. City of Forms. Space Funeral equals Final Fantasy VII. For some reason, the thumbnail of Space Funeral in Game Jolt is the game's title screen, but instead of Space Funeral, it says Final Fantasy VII. I have no idea why, but it's sort of funny. Obscure references. Most SF games have incredibly obscure references in them, to the point where I can barely find what most of them are referencing. Space Funeral Tower of Cassiopeia. This is a lost SF fan game I can't find much about. Stoic Rose 94 is a long play of it on her channel, but there's no way to download it, so that's about your best option for experiencing it. Space Funeral Deathstival. This is another fan game apparently meant to be a parody of Cardarnival. It's completely lost and there aren't even any playthroughs. Why Space Funeral fan games? This entry could mean a lot, but it's presumably asking why people fixate on SF for fan games so much compared to other franchises. It's just very weird for why people make so many for this game in particular, but I don't mind. It just means there's more to talk about and play. Perpetual Change. At the end of the first game, Moon talks about performing a cycle of great changes, until it becomes a perpetual ceaseless chaos of forms. That's about it from what I can tell. I'm not sure why this is so low down. Destiny. I'm really not sure what this is talking about. Sorry. That's the last entry, by the way. Sorry to end it on a low note. And that's the Space Funeral Iceberg. I hope you enjoyed it. Give me feedback in the comments, and go do something else. Bye.